SS&B means comfort to me.
Hello, I'm Charles with SS&B, and today what I'd like to show you is how we do our maintenance for our maintenance program. This is a gas furnace, so we're going to be doing the heating service today. Part of our heating service is to make sure that we check operation of the system based off what the manufacturer wants that system to do. So there's a lot of checks that we do that a lot of customers won't see. One thing is we change filters on all the systems. This one actually has a filter rack inside above the furnace. On your filters, you always want to make sure that your arrow is facing with the airflow, which would in this case would be going this way, so make sure the arrows are going the right way. Go ahead and get started. This gives us access to all of our electrical and all of our gas valves and everything. From here is where we do all of our testing. We go ahead and we'll jump it out and make sure that the system is operating correctly before we get good started. We'll run it through a complete cycle to make sure that everything is working correctly. And this just shows us every stage of this furnace. So we now have a fire, and then after it heats up, then the blower will actually come on, the system will actually run at that point. Alright, so the control board says now that the heat is on and the blower is actually running, so that is a complete cycle. At which point we can now start actually testing and checking everything to make sure it's working correctly. One thing we do is we always check wires to make sure that we have a good connection, no loose connections. Alright, from here we're actually set up now to where we can do the gas pressure. We can do all the voltages and amp draws at this one time. So basically we can go through the whole entire system all at one time. Once again, we'll jump it back out. And at this point now we can actually amp out the induced draft motor. We'll compare that to the data tag. We can also amp out the igniter to make sure the igniter is not overamping. Now we can check the gas pressure to make sure that it's within standards. This is an 80% furnace, so it has a metal vent pipe. 90% would have a PVC pipe, and it would actually drain water during the winter time. So at which time we always make sure we clear out the drain lines so that the 90% can actually drain properly. While we're waiting, we can go ahead and do our voltages. When this cycles down, then we'll start doing our inspection of our evaporator coil and of our blower, and we'll use a video scope. It gives us access to a lot of places that you can't normally get to without taking it completely apart. So once it cycles down, we can actually shut off the power. point, we can actually go in and we can check your blower, which is what moves the air through the system. We check it for the amp rating on the blower motor, and then we also can check on the other side so that we can actually see if there is any dirt or dust that might need additional cleaning. At that point, we can actually decide at that point. There's also a capacitor that is down inside this blower that we actually pull so that we can check, make sure that it's within spec as well. This one is an actual ECM motor, so there is not a capacitor on this one. Once we get that up here checked, then we can actually remove the limit switch, at which time we can actually go down through the furnace and check the evaporator coil without having to tear all that panel apart. And then we can actually go in and actually go all the way down from here into the evaporator coil at the bottom down here. And that allows us to see and evaluate and make sure that it's not being, any dirt might be bypassing filters and might need additional cleaning as well. It also allows us to gain access to the actual heat exchanger, which is where these burners are burning. That's your heat exchanger. Our scope allows us to go in there and check all those for cracks or holes or any problems that might exist in those. All right. Another thing that we always make sure is we always check to inspect and clean the flame sensor. So this is the flame sensor here. We always make sure to pull it out and visually inspect it and make sure that it is clean. This is probably one of the most common repairs on a furnace. If this isn't clean and reading correctly, the board will not allow the system to continue to run. All right, once all that is done, then we'll start the system back up again. We will take what's called a temp rise, which is the difference temperatures between the return air that's pulling in and the heated air that's blowing out. We always make sure that's set according to manufacturer. Also, at that time we check the amp draw on the blower to make sure that it's not overamping, and then make sure it's within range. Once we get all of that done, the final thing is to actually clean the furnace interior cabinet with a shop vac so that it's all cleaned up. So we use a shop vac, and then we actually vacuuming all of this out. If there's any buildup inside there, then we actually shop vac and get all that cleaned out. After we do all of that, we go inside, we'll check the thermostat for correct operation, correct setup, also to make sure that there's no wires that are loose on the backside of the thermostat. We also make sure that we check that the temperature is reading correctly in that space. Part of our maintenance program is also to check the ductwork to make sure that it's sealed, we don't have any leakages in the ductwork. With all of our maintenance programs, we do a maintenance form, and it actually shows all of what we do as far as all the data that we collect on the system, and we actually keep that on file for the customer.
Service and quality that keep you smiling. SS&B means comfort to me.